all present here to the finale of our debate competition. The Kerala Law Academy Law College, which began its stride since the year 1966, could have remained a far-fetched dream without our beloved Narayan Nair Sir's vision-inspired approaches. He himself, a legal enthusiast and scholar, made the dream realizable by laying a strong foundation to this revered institution. Today, we are all gathered here on this virtual platform to witness the final round of the Best Minds debate competition as a part of second Dutch National Gestez Fest under the aegis of Kerala Law Academy Law College. Without further ado, I would like to invite our judges for the finals. First, we have with us Rahul Ishwar, a philosophy author, orator, activist, and an eminent media personality. We are very lucky to have him amongst us to judge the talented contestants. I welcome you, sir, to the session.
Thank you. Thank you.
With him, we have Mr. Lal Kumar, a public speaker, media personality, and render of selfless services to the society. His wisdom and experience in this field will be beneficial for our contestants. It's our privilege to have you here with us, sir.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to bring your attention to the rules of the debate. First, all participants must keep their video on at all times throughout the session. In this round, each participant will be getting 5 minutes to state their arguments. There will be a rebuttal session of 3 minutes after the first pair of participants have completed their arguments. An intimation will be given through chat box when there is 1 minute left for each time every speaker speaks. With that, I welcome the finalists to debate on the topic, Russia-Ukraine war, justifiable or simply catastrophic. With the judge's kind permission, shall we start the session?
Sir,
Speaker.
doubts are ready, like?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Speaker 1 of the team I may begin speaking for the cause.
Team I.
I1, you may start speaking for the cause.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
I'm sorry, the host wasn't allowing us to unmute until now. It is sorted. So would the time be starting now?
You have to switch on the video before you start. Simple.
Sure.
Ah, yes.
Shall I start now?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, sir. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where the clear stream of reason has lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, into that heaven of freedom, Father, let my country awake. Respected judges, organizers, and my dear co-contestants, I'm here to speak in favor of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Rabindranath Tagore eloquently spoke about a heaven of freedom where reason hasn't lost its way. However, what we see now across the world are propaganda and narratives that are led and evoked by emotions that are given rise by gory, biased pictures that are painted by the media conglomerates that are heavily funded by the West and those which are far removed from reality. Since the Cold War era, Russia has been painted as an all-pervading villain, bent on foiling the very delicate peace that is maintained by the big brothers of the US and the West. The Russian nuclear weapons and armaments are a threat to the world. But a US defense spending that is $800 billion per year, when compared to just the $61 billion a year of Russia and $72 billion of India, those are for maintaining peace and against terrorism, but that by Russia is for spoiling the peace of the world. What a laudable joke. It is a basic principle of public international law and humanitarian law that when your security and when the sovereignty of your state is threatened, you are allowed to use force, but within the laws of war. Even when we look at IPC in India, we can see that Section 96 allows us to use private defense. And private defense states that it cannot be used not only when we are attacked, but also when there is a threat of attack. And when we look at the world stage, the countries are, after all, in reflections of us people itself. That exactly, the laws that work in an international stage is also exactly like personal laws. Where there is a threat of attack, a country can invade to protect their sovereignty and their territorial integrity. And NATO has been, through NATO, the Western countries and especially the US has been threatening the territorial integrity of Russia since 2008. In 2008, in the Bucharest summit and later in the 2021 Brussels summit in June, US proposed that Ukraine should be made part of NATO. And that is a direct threat to the sovereign integrity of Russia. And Russia time and again warned and requested. They used a friendly tone, they used a tone of warning, all of that to Ukraine, and asked them not to do that, because that move would destabilize the peace in that area. And NATO, we all know that it in itself is a warmongering club of elitist Western powers who use orchestrated vested interests to destabilize anyone who stands against their exalted ethos. The role of US in grooming and puppeteering Vladimir Zelensky into a Western ally to destabilize Russia is clear as day. In 2014, US flushed millions of dollars into Ukraine to topple the then Ukrainian President Yanukovych, and it was part of their wider plan to desiccate every faction in Europe that supports Russia. US media houses, AI-powered data techniques, and information feeds created resentment in the mind of Ukrainian people, who then took to the streets to topple their own democratically elected president. And it is surprising. We should note that it's ironic that Yanukovych himself said that he is ready to face the election, but the Western allies were not ready. They hurriedly put him out, and a puppet Zelensky was put in his place. And again, the Ukrainian commandments, which were already cooperating with NATO, and also the missile stand and watch them. No, they have the right to attack. They have the right to self-preservation. And let us not forget the role of US, which infiltrated countries like Yugoslavia, Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. The list is long. And when the children and mothers died over there, no corporates, no conglomerates, no one sanctioned them. Because why? They were not blue-eyed and blonde-haired Europeans and of the civilized and modern world, as was said by the deputy public prosecutor of Ukraine itself in a BBC interview. And also as was said by Christy Agada, who is the foreign correspondent of CBS News. This is not a people of Syria or Iraq. He actually had the audacity to say that it is not the Syrians or Iraqis dying, but it is the people of Europe. This is the double standard that we see in the world. Thank you.
Now, Evan may start speaking against the cause.
E1, are you online?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Just to clarify, I believe that the speaker before me was speaking for.
Yes.
Right. Could I just get a minute to deliberate with my co-counsel?
Are you E2 or E1?
I believe the order wasn't clear between, we didn't clarify the order. So just to clarify, could I just have a minute, please?
Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to begin my speech just to clarify the beginning of where this all started. During the Cold War, USSR created a massive nuclear arsenal that lay in the Ukrainian Socialist Republic, which remained in the country for a good while After which Ukraine then decided to rightfully hand over those nuclear arsenals back to Russia as where they seemed that they belonged. In 2000, Russia then claimed that they had signed a deal with the EU saying that it would allow Ukraine or any previous former Soviet states to make treaties with whichever nation they wanted to. However, in 2014, when pro-Russia President Viktor Yanukovych, as stated, fled the country and fled Russia, taking this opportunity, Russia, like just any other extremist organization, entered a country where the political situation was disabled and took over the country. Just then at that time, Russia even publicly made a statement saying that it illegally annexed these spaces, especially Crimea, on the basis of the fact that when it just sparked an international condemnation, it stated that the invasion was just merely the troops not acting in order of the Russians. However, to further clarify, Russia not only killed more than 10,000 people, killed prisoners, and Ukrainian prisoners were brutally raped and murdered and tortured. At that time, Russia clearly did not take a step forward for the country that they stated who had its sovereignty. When Ukraine handed over the nuclear weapons back to Russia, it asked for one simple promise. And that simple promise was that Ukraine would have its sovereignty and Russia would allow Ukraine to maintain its sovereignty. Ukraine is not at fault for strengthening its power with the EU for the fact that EU is allowing Ukraine with the comprehensive free trade areas policy to allow Ukrainians to access any parts of the international European market, which allows people and goods, Ukrainian goods, to pass by. So with Ukraine getting this sort of sovereignty, Russia didn't seem to sit. It didn't seem to sit right with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Russia claims to state in today's time that it is very threatened by the fact that it's surrounded by nations that have signed the NATO treaty. However, just to clarify, I agree that the traditional principle of NATO is collective defense. However, to clarify, this means that the attack on one or more members is considered attack on the whole. However, Ukraine can't simply join NATO, which Russia is clearly aware of. Since in Article 6 of the treaty, it states that whichever nations have any disputes, internal or external disputes, they must settle those disputes peacefully, after which resolution of such disputes would be a factor in determining whether the invitation of that state to join the alliance is considered or not. Russia's claims are extremely invalid. They have no validity to them. Russia is just choosing to invade the nation, just as extreme terrorists and extremists invade other nations, as rightly stated by my opponent, that just like any other nation such as Syria, Iraq, etc., where all these wars are being flared up, just the same way as extremists entered those nations, Russia is entering the nation they promised that they would allow sovereignty to. Russia also claimed the fact that the gas pipelines that were passing from Russia through Ukraine were being stopped by Ukraine, and the gas was basically being not allowed to pass through. However,
1 minute left.
Based on that, that's an extreme factual guess, and it is extremely factually inaccurate if Russia seems to make broad claims like this just to merely propagate their agenda of taking over a nation that they promised to allow sovereignty to. We are currently in a situation, just to conclude, that we're currently in a situation wherein on 22nd February of 2002, Russia has invaded Ukraine and through the Crimean Peninsula in the south, and initiated a full-scale interstate war between Russia and Ukraine just because they could not propagate their political agenda. Thank you.
Now we are moving on to the rebuttal. Speaker one of the team I, you may begin rebuttal.
You are not audible. I.
Ivan, can you speak something?
No, I cannot hear. Sir, can you?
No.
No. I think your audio is having some issues.
Hello, sir. Am I
Yeah.
audible now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you to my honorable opponent for those points. The first and foremost point that I have to make here is that Russia never questioned or threatened the sovereignty of Ukraine. The point behind this invasion, even when the invasion was just 1 day old, Russia said that we are ready for peace talks now. It was Russia who initiated peace talks, and they said that we just have two demands. One is that Ukraine should not join NATO. Ukraine should not become another base for the US as they do across. Ukraine should not become a battleground from where US can wage their wars. Ukraine should not allow it to be the last puzzle in US game so that they can surround Russia and attack them along with their allies. And the second point that Russia made was that their president Zelensky should be removed because he is a puppet of the West. They do not want control over Ukraine. They are not saying that we are taking Ukraine back. It might be the other forces which say that this is the intention of Russia, but who are they to speak for Russia? Did Russia ever put forward such a point? They just had 2 points, that is their territorial integrity and also not to have a puppet of the West right outside their borders, ready to pawn his country over just for the status of being part of EU and of NATO. And the second point where my worthy opponent made was that Ukraine would not be made part of NATO and that it is just a temptation that the West is providing. And that is also wrong because Zelensky again and again and again, even recently, last day, he again requested membership towards a NATO. US is also reconsidering offering membership for Ukraine to NATO again. And that is also being taken up and discussed in the Security Council meetings that are going on right now as we speak. So again, we can see that maybe the West are playing their games as always, but it cannot be said that Russia is having complete guarantees to just sit back and believe in the West, because we know what happened to millions of countries and millions of population who believed in that. When the Palestinians took just sticks and stones, they were termed as terrorists. But where they are being hailed as nationalists. Thank you. I think my time is up. Is my time up?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Apart from that, you should ensure that your audio is right, because there is a problem. Because I think, am I the only person who is experiencing some problem per side, sir?
No, I believe, Ivan, your audio clarity and net quality can be slightly enhanced. Your arguments are super fine, but just take care, because next is the question answer round. We would like to listen to your arguments, body language, tones, everything is important. Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Next, speaker 1 of Team E may begin Sir rebuttal.
I would like to begin by stating the fact that my worthy opponent just completely invalidated the fact that every outraged war that's taking place in other nations is absolutely invalid, and also clarified the fact that when the current Zelensky, the current figurehead of Ukraine, is clearly not in favor and in support of Russia. However, when Viktor Yanukovych was in power at that time, I don't think Russia seemed to have anything to say about it back then. And also to just clarify the fact that why should Russia ideally have a say as to what a former Soviet nation should do and which figurehead they should currently have in place? Another thing, to reiterate once again the point that when Russia claims to say that if Ukraine joins NATO, it is threatened power-wise, it clearly states that no state with internal or external disputes can join NATO until and unless they settle those disputes peacefully with a peaceful resolution, which would then allow all the nations who are part of NATO to deliberate whether they can be part of NATO or not. Another point I would like to stress on the fact that Russia, after breaking multiple promises to Ukraine, still seem to seep in through the borders of Crimea and not feel bad about the fact that they're taking innocent lives of people. Vladimir Putin himself in one of the speeches clearly mentioned the fact that we are doing this for the people of Ukraine, since they want to go back to their roots of their USSR selves. However, to just clarify that if this was for the people, I don't think that any nation figurehead would like shedding blood on those same lands that they claim to have simple ties with or had former ties with. This is an outright full-fledged murder, an outright full-fledged condemnation in totality, and is not justified in even the smallest iota at all. Ukraine deserves to make its own choices as a sovereign nation and should not seem to face any backlash for doing so, especially from a nation that clearly does not have any hold or power over them anymore. This should not be allowed within today's political agendas, and neither should any nation have any say over any other nation's political bindings as to who their figurehead is or how their nation should function. I would like to conclude by just saying that the arguments that I presented forth were just to clarify the fact that the current war that's outraged is absolutely non-viable in nature and should not be done so. It is just to provide and further a political agenda of taking back what Russia claims to be theirs, which they would not obviously do internationally, but to take back what they claim to be theirs internally. Thank you.
Thank you. So are we going for the next stage?
Now question answers or going for the next people? I mean, Lal, I know what should be our call. They are okay with both. Either we can ask question answers to them, or we can invite the next people and ask question answers at the end. What would be your choice?
I leave it to you.
Are the other people present? Are the other, that means I2, E1, are they present?
Yes, sir, we're present.
Even though my inner urge is to ask questions, I really want to ask and grill these two people on questions. I would believe we can keep it to the end because the other people may get undue advantage.
Yes, exactly.
The conversations and the other thing, they may get more points or they may know the judge.
That is right. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think we will go for the other two and then come to the question.
Speaking at the beginning is tough. Yeah.
Now, speaker 1 of Team E may begin speaking for the cause.
Am I audible? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. To understand the Ukrainian crisis of 2022, I think we should start with the end of the Second World War. So what happened is, after the Allied forces won, two major powers, that is United States and the Soviet Union, both in terms of, I think, strategy as well as ideology, they entered a new world order. And the world shifted from a situation where there was multipolarity, that is before the First World War, to bipolarity. And even if one of the powers was stronger than the other, both were excellent powers and they dictated the global arena. In an attempt to prevent a situation in which one power would basically rise above the other, both began strengthening themselves with allies. And here is where we see that in the April of 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization was founded. And it was founded as a precautionary measure to combat against the rise of the Soviet Union. And it was essentially founded as a mediation mechanism to prevent any further conflicts between European members. So by following the strategic logic, we also saw that USSR also formed its Warsaw Treaty. But we see that the whole logic behind these pacts was collective security, which means that if one of the allies is attacked, it is considered as an attack on all. And we cannot forget that in the very essence of these organizations, they are military organizations. And as far as we know that, or we do know that Soviet Union basically was dissolved for various reasons. And basically after the Second World War came to an end, after the Cold War came to an end, Russia still remained a great power. And United Nations and especially the NATO, they understood this situation, and they saw that China, it was rising, and they began pressuring Russia in an attempt to, I think, speed up its decline. So even after the dissolution of Soviet Union, Russia had a tremendous influence, but NATO had not dissolved. After it was conceptually useless because it was, founded for to combat against the Soviet Union. So if the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact has been lost, then why would NATO continue to exist? And continue to exist is one point, but enlarge itself to, go and make sure that more and more countries keep joining NATO. Ukraine, even though an independent country, which has been since 1991, it is Russia, I don't think, should be considered as a sole aggressor here, because even though its attempt to create, Russia has an attempt to create European dependence on its energy, and that is a significant matter. In the current Ukrainian matter, strategically speaking, Russia is not an agent, but it's a reagent. One could assume that the West, if the West had not pushed Ukraine over attempting to recruit it for NATO or to the European Union, Russia would never have invaded Ukraine, nor in 2014 and nor in 2022. Indeed, like liberalism and democracy are important concepts for Ukrainians, and their voices must be heard. But voices of many liberals, conservatives, and people, I think, in between, yet, I think, liberalism and democracy, they do not always align with strategic goals, especially not when one of the great powers of the world is struggling with the other. Moreover, while Russia attempts to preserve or to boost its global influence, it is the United States that also attempts to preserve its
1 minute left.
It is also the United States that attempts to preserve its global dominance, especially in the light of the fact where China is questioning this global dominance. Russia must stop its intervention in Ukraine. That is one point. But to be able to defend their national security is a basic right that every sovereign country has on its own. In the current state of affairs, I feel that the United States and the West are the ones who must guarantee that Ukraine is a neutral buffer zone, as it was the United States. I think that we remember in the Cuban Missile Crisis, this is what basically happened. So if Russia can, completely free Cuba of missiles, and the situations can reach one.
The time is over.
I feel we should demand the same from United States. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Speaker 2 of Team I may begin speaking against the call.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. No more war. War never again. Peace. It is peace which must guide the destinies of people and of all mankind. A right is caught by the Pope Paul VI. Good afternoon, everyone. My good afternoon, judges and my co-participants and everyone else present here. I'm here today to talk about the topic, the Russian-Ukrainian War, a catastrophic conflict. War, the most notorious and disastrous event that could ever occur on Earth. Such a notorious war of aggression has been happening between Ukraine and Russia. Russia invaded Ukraine on 24 February 2022. Internally considered a war of aggression, it is the largest conventional military attack on European states since World War II. It triggered Europe's largest refugee crisis ever since World War II, with over 3.7 million Ukrainians leaving the country and millions more fleeing away. The invasion was a major escalation of the ongoing Russian-Ukraine conflict that began in 2014. This conflict began with the 2014 when Ukrainian Revolution of Dignity, when Russia annexed Crimea and Russian-backed separatists seized part of southeast Ukraine, stating the war in Donbas. In 2021, Russia began a large military setup along its border with Ukraine, amassing up to 190,000 troops along with their equipment. Russian President Vladimir Putin espoused irredentistic views, questioned Ukrainians' right to statehood, and falsely accused Ukraine of being dominated by the neo-Nazis who persecute the Russian-speaking minority. Putin said the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that is the NATO, had threatened Russia's security by expanding eastward since the early 2000s, and a claim dispute by the NATO. So the ongoing conflict between these two countries has created a lot of turmoil in the world, leading it to be a catastrophic event, which in turn leads to my topic. Is this war a catastrophic event? Yes, it is. What are these effects? Firstly, the invasion and military activities has resulted in destruction of infrastructure in much developed cities like Kyiv of Ukraine. Due to missile attack and armed force actions, both the countries have suffered the loss of its infrastructure during the event. Secondly, the financial markets. The financial markets are in tailspin in many countries, more importantly after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, putting in a state of uncertainty, turmoil, and geopolitical risk. The volatility in the global financial markets is unpredictable, causing irreparable loss of wealth of millions of investors who are hurriedly protecting their portfolio even at the cost of taking a hit. The Ukraine war takes place as the US Federal Reserve and other central banks are dealing with rising inflation. The price could even go higher now. This particular war has caused inflation in food prices in many countries, resulting in people hunger stricken all over the world. Thirdly, and most importantly, why the Ukraine conflict is a much bigger catastrophic even than we think is because of the refugees it has created. 10 million people till this day have now fled their homes in Ukraine because of Russian invasion, says the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. The UN figure is based on proper research carried out by the International Organization of Migration between 9th and 16th March. Apart from these, many people has lost their lives to this war, affecting the mankind in general. On 25th March, Russia's Ministry of Defense confirmed that 1,351 Russian soldiers has been killed in combat, with another 3,825 being injured. With respect to Russian military losses, the Ukrainian estimates tended to be high. The number of civilian deaths as well as military deaths is impossible to determine with precision given the fog of war. And as Argentinian President Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez rightly said, the peace of world is disturbed by the military invasion of Russian Federation on Ukraine. Europe is moved as a specter of war rises again. War violence devastates human lives. So global peace has been affected so widely because of disruptions of the war, and it is even affecting the hapless index of countries that are not even affected by war. How can someone justify such a war by telling that Russia has got its own policies and Russia has to secure its own securities? Is this how Russia secures its security? Is this how Russia provides security to its own individuals by declaring war against fellow states? Even the labor phase or force of the economy also changes with these effects of war. All these effects combinedly says is only one thing, that this war is not justifiable and this is a catastrophic event. As the father of our nation rightly said, I appeal for cessation of hostilities, not because you're too exhausted to fight, but because war is bad in essence. Yes, war is bad in essence and it can never be justified. Thank you.
Now we are moving on to the rebuttals. Speaker 2 of Team E may begin rebuttal.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to start with no more war is a very generic statement to make. There are many reasons behind taking such a step. It's a well thought out step. I think that just as liberals, you can't just slap slogans onto topics that are of such important geopolitical issues and just say no more war and get over with it. Secondly, you said that it's a huge refugee issue. Now, war displaces people. Geopolitical issues displace people. That is true. But why is it that when Ukrainian refugees have come into the picture, it has suddenly become United Nations' biggest issue that it has ever faced? Have we not seen refugees from Libya, from Yemen, from Syria for all these years? Since 2008, they have been displaced. There have been children, like babies who have been taken away from their mothers. All of this was happening for the past 10 years. Is it only necessary that when European refugees come into the picture, it suddenly becomes the world's issue? But when it's Middle Eastern people who have been displaced out of their homes due to West actions taken by the West, they are not as important as other refugee crises. And where is the United States opening their doors to let in the Ukrainian refugees? When has the United States or any of the other Western countries, apart from say France or say UK, have really made it a point that the Middle Eastern refugees who have been displaced over the past 10 years have found a stable and a proper home? Other than that, what you said about investors and inflation, when we talk about a catastrophic event, we talk about the human rights repercussions of it. I think inflation, even though it affects people on a scale, it shouldn't be the first thing on our mind. And like economic sanctions shouldn't be the first thing that comes to our mind when we talk about war. Other than that, I think Russia, by the way, is a very underrated energy giant. It is the world's third largest producer of oil, second largest producer of natural gas, and it provides the energy needs of almost all of the European demand is met by Russia. So when we see that Russia is dependent upon Europe or the West for their economic sanctions, it is vice versa as well. So these issues are going to affect both of us equally. So there needs to be a solution. You cannot just go around saying that war is not the answer when there are no other options left. When we see that Cuban Missile Crisis was a very similar event, by the way, where we saw that America was literally threatening nuclear war unless and until Cuban missiles weren't moved from their backyard. Ukraine also shares a border with Russia. Somehow, it being a part of a military treaty, which is going to help build military organizations, is also not acceptable. That is what I'd like to say. Thank you so
much. May I begin now?
Speaker 2. Yes, you can begin.
I would like to point out to my worthy opponent that no more war is a politics. It is a clear politics. No more war is a politics. How can you justify a war by telling that no more war is not a politics? And it is so irrelevant from your part that you pointed it out that the refugees of the Middle Eastern countries are not cared well as much as the refugees of Ukraine. That is a misconception. That is a pure misconception. Refugees, be it any part of the world, UN has taken its all the action that it could take to save the refugees, be it the Palestinian refugees, be it the refugees from Iran, be it the Afghani refugees from Afghanistan, or the UN has reduced the number of refugees, and the same step has been taken by the UN right now at this point when Russia has declared war. My question to my worthy opponent is, how can someone justify an event that killed thousands and thousands of people and that injured millions by telling that no more war is not a politics? It is not justifiable in any terms. I would like to point out to the notice of you that this particular war has resulted in thousands of people living in the developing country go hunger-stricken due to inflation of prices. The effect of this war is not as simple as we see it. It inculcates into the basic lives of very ordinary citizens of each country. In less than a month, Putin's war of choice against Ukraine has caused the largest crisis in Europe ever since World War II. Ever since World War II, and importance to that statement. Innocent civilians have been killed and targeted with millions more displaced. And coming to the economy part, yes, economy has to be taken into consideration when a war is in progress. We can't say that the economy shouldn't be taken into much consideration when the war is happening. As if the economists start to believe this particular war will put Russia's economy itself behind for next 30 years. And limited their trade with Russia like USA and China. For this reason, Adam Slater, the lead economist of Oxford Economics, predicts a drop of 5% in the world's GDP. And that drop of 5% is not something that the world can afford. He said the effects on the US, China, and most developing countries should be limited. However, Russia is still, as you suggested, Russia is still a very important supplier of oil, natural gas, and metals. Higher prices on these important materials known as commodity could cause problems around the world, not just in Ukraine. It could cause problems around the world. Hence, the global GDP is going to get affected, and that in turn will create chaos in the ordinary lives of the citizens. Companies around the world are trying to find enough goods to meet demand as the COVID-19 pandemic case rises. This has meant shortage, shipping delays, and higher prices, and this war adds more fuel to it. Disruption to Russian and Ukrainian industries could delay any return to normal conditions. The Ukrainian war takes place as the US Federal Reserve and the central banks were dealing with rising inflation. Now, price could go even higher. As noted by Zanti, a leading economist, the Russian and Ukraine produce 12% of world's oil and 70% of natural gases.
Time
And when the
over.
prices of these, I would like to state that the war is just a catastrophic event. Thank you.
Your time is over.
Okay.
With this, we have come to the end of the session. Now we have question answer session.
I believe, just a submission to Lal, we will start with I1, then I1's counterpart in E, then I2, and perhaps the counterpart in E. Is that okay with all the contestants and our team?
You're saying I1, E1?
I mean, just like we had.
Okay, yeah, fine.
With I1. I believe, I know there might be a slight confusion regarding E. So the speaker who spoke first is E1, right?
Yes.
Because
E1.
earlier your name was given E2, so that's just a clarification. E1 and then E2. So and every person can have around 4 to 5 questions. 4 to 5 minutes. 7 quick questions. We will be just checking your answering ability.
Just it out, sir. The person who first spoke from E side E is who is it? E1 or E2?
Earlier she was given E2. Right now it is given E1. I mean, they had an internal arrangement and adjustment, I believe.
So that means the first person is E1, isn't it?
E1.
Okay.
And no, before we start our questioning to the all 4 contestants, simply superb. I cannot, but tell how beautifully articulated that you have regarding the positions. I know as speakers and panelists in national channels, Lal Kumar and I, we felt proud to listen to you because you can directly be taken. I know this is the compliment part, but the next round will never be so respectful. Will be never so sweet. We will be asking hard questions. We will be grilling you to the best of our abilities. And if you don't end up feeling offended, we will be sad because our whole purpose will be to offend the brass out of you and see your answers. So shall we start with the question? Lal, would you like to start?
Yes. To I1, perhaps.
Yes, sir. Sir, am I audible this time?
Yes.
I hope.
You started with a quote, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
What is it quote?
It's from Tagore's Gitanjali.
No, your net is not clear. Come again? Yeah, come
So
again.
my quote was from Tagore's Gitanjali.
Of course. And you are speaking for the national interest of Russia, isn't it?
Yes.
Don't you think there is an irony with that quotation and the Tagorean thoughts?
Sir,
Tagore was never in favor of nationalism.
Yes. Tagore was never in favor of nationalism, and he definitely even gave up his title of, he was given the title of Sir, and he gave it up even that. And he is famous for his stances. But at the same time, why I used that term is to show it to the world that there is a lack of stance or there is a hypocrisy.
My question is simple. My question is simple. You are making a contention that the United States is killing, Britain is killing, so Russia can also kill, or they can also go for war, isn't it? That is your explanation. Tagore was for no war. Tagore was not at all interested in war.
Respectfully, sir, that was not my intention. What I tried to say was that war is wrong, whoever it is, but here it was done in self-defense, and also when US kills, when Russia, when
then I'll come to
Britain
self-defense.
kills,
You were quoting IPC 96.
yes.
Is it allowed to do excess while being in private defense? You can protect yourself. Sir. You cannot be aggressive.
Yes.
Is it the same happening in Russia?
In my personal opinion, I do not believe because the number of soldiers who are being killed by the Ukrainian forces are also high, and also there is still
what's the number? What's the
discrepancies
number? How many
regarding
people?
the
How
war
many
crimes.
people were? How many Russians have been killed by Ukrainians? Tell me that.
The official number from the Russian side is 1,300, but from the Ukrainian side is 13,000. So it is too early a stage to determine which is right and which is wrong. We have to sift out the wheat from the good ones and then decide. So right now, I feel that as long as even Zelensky is being arrogantly against the demands of Russia, so a term of coming into an excess is still not there. And if we look into humanitarian law and if we check the war crimes or the extent of it, we are too fast.
If I can gently intrude or intervene, you are saying that the reasoning that the world media is giving, or the explanation that has been given by the world media, is unfair, because that is quite one-sided in favor of the United States or the NATO allies. Even if I agree to that, if I concede to that point, my contention is, so you were against war for sure. You were against the explanation for those wars, isn't it?
I am not completely against war ever, sir. Because tomorrow, if Pakistan invades India, or if China sets up a military base in Pakistan from where they can launch missiles and nuclear warheads towards us, I would still support if India takes a preemptive measure, because that is my nationalism. That is what I would stand for. And I know that that is what the world would stand for too.
So if for Akshay Chin and for the Tawang track, if the Chinese aggression happens and if they go on attacking us for their cause to get the Northeastern Territory, that is okay in newer terms. If I take or extrapolate that idea to an international sphere, it is okay for the Chinese to attack us, isn't it?
No, I would. Hello, sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Hello. Yes, sir. So war should always be the last resort, but that it can be a resort. The first should always be diplomatic relations, diplomatic sanctions.
Then how much effort that the Russians have taken to stop this war? Tell me, not just we'll speak about it. No, I'm not asking about it. What real initiatives they have taken? What were the initiatives which they have taken?
The first step.
Don't explain their readiness. That is different.
Definitely, sir.
Readiness and willingness, leave it. My point is, how much effort they have taken. You can show that these were the things they have done. Tell me 3 or 4.
Sir, I would like to ask how many chances were given to Russia? How many people were willing to listen to them?
For example,
everybody is, even the internet. The internet companies, be it Facebook, Twitter is going to censor their words. Twitter is not giving them a platform to say what they have to say.
When you talk about nation states, you bring in corporates here. For example, assume a case where the Pakistanis are much mightier military power than India, and one day they are saying we have given you 100 number of warnings. So you stop there, or you do whatever we need. Is it a fair argument or fair contention to put forward?
No, sir. Here, Russia, when I said that they have readiness to talk and they are inviting for, they are the first people who said that we must have a peace talk here. They in unequal terms, they put forward their terms. And Zelensky was the first one who was not initially willing to go forward for the talk. And when he understood that NATO will not be supporting them and the US will not be supporting them militarily, that is when they finally conceded and they said that, okay, fine, we will be part of this talk. So initially that aversion was not apart from Russia. And Russia also initially did not want the invasion to go forward. They just wanted to prove that we are very much present here. And if we are pushed and shoved into a corner, we will take a step. That is all Russia was trying to do.
Okay, so
Ivan, the first question to you. See, you have lost the argument in your first line because you conceded that it is an invasion. You conceded, even use the word invasion. Russian apologists like you, people who support blindly Russia like you, usually say Russia is there to liberate. Russia is especially there to liberate those persecuted Russian people and those two republics, breakaway republics. So you have conceded and you have lost in the first line itself when you yourself called many times that Russia is invading.
Very, very respectfully, sir. I would not call myself a blind apologist of Russia. So I would say where it is, I'll call
you are an apologist of Russia. You agree that you are an apologist of Russia, not blind though.
Yes, but not a blind one. I would stick to my.
Russia. You are formally conceding that you are an apologist for Russia, and apologist is never a good. Okay, fine. So what about the word invasion?
But
you have
I would
considered
say
that it is an invasion.
Invasion is also one of the tactics which is allowed in the art of war, or which, in the art of foreign policy, where there is an existential threat, where there is a threat to the security of the sovereignty of a nation. Invasion is allowed as a preemptive tactic. That is what Russia is doing. So I would not, even though I am a Russia apologist.
Russia is geographically the largest nation in the world. Russia is geographically the largest nation in the world, followed by Canada, followed by other nations. And you are saying a small republic like Ukraine is threatening Russia?
Even a very small republic, if it becomes a military base to the biggest annual arsenal spender, that can become a threat to Russia. Because how was Russia knelt in the Second World War? Even though they are the biggest, they have the biggest territory, they have many disadvantages. They don't have access to the sea. They have a lot long winters, so they have a lot of shortcomings there. And when they are surrounded from all
they don't have access to sea, you agree that they can invade Ukraine, kill the people there, torture them, and get access to sea. So you are how brutal can you be? How heartless can you be in saying that for natural resources you can kill people and take it away? And the most important point, being a debater, you have not even once used the word that Putin officially uses. We are doing it for denazification. At least Putin, has put on a show. At least Putin is pretentious and good enough to be pretentious to say it is denazification. But you being a Putin apologist, you are openly saying that we want resources, we want sea. That's the reason why you are attacking.
No, I am not saying that it is for the sea that they are attacking. I am only saying that they are there in order to, because they are threatened. They are not asking access to sea. If they wanted access to sea, they can always, as a friendly nation, there are bilateral treaties. There are many other forms. If they wanted access to sea, and Russia being an upper hand, Russia with its superior resources, all of it, it is an easy task for Russia. They do not have to.
Last two questions. Do you agree with Putin's contention that he did it for denazification of Ukraine, where a Jew is leading them?
I do not agree to that, sir. No, I do not agree to that. That is when I said that. So I do not believe in the denazification theory, but like any other nationalist leader, just like maybe if I can say that even in our country, every incident should appeal to the masses as well. That is the role of a leader. A leader should make incidents appeal to the masses. A leader is not always about.
So you agree that Putin is playing to the gallery? So you agree that Putin is playing?
He should. Biden plays to the gallery. Boris Johnson plays to the gallery. Everybody is playing to the gallery. The world.
So let me conclude my question by concluding your argument in one sentence. A does wrong, so B has a right to do wrong. So C has a right to do wrong. America attacked Iraq, so Russia can attack Ukraine. See, if American attack on Iraq is wrong, why are you shying away from calling Russian invasion on Ukraine wrong?
No, I point that call it as a protection against terrorism. And when Russia attacks Ukraine, that is an invasion of their sovereignty. When Israel attacks Palestine, that is against terrorism. But when Russia attacks Ukraine, that is against the nationalism of Ukraine. This is the double standard that we have been seeing.
You are also speaking the same double standard. You are echoing George Bush in saying that a poor Middle East nation like Iraq can threaten the mightiest power in the world, America, with weapons of mass destruction which never found. So you are conceding that you are also having double standards. You are only questioning
Russia is not there to stay. Russia is not there to stay. Russia is only there to strong arm them. Russia is only there to say that NATO cannot come into Ukraine. That is all. Russia is not saying that we want to exceed you. We are going to make you part of Russia. Tomorrow onwards, you are not Ukrainians, you are Russians. That is not Russia's stand. Yeah, Russia is only there.
Last question.
Yes,
this
sir.
is only your stand. But Putin has gone on an article explaining that this 1,000-year-old nation, Ukrainians and Russians, belong to the same cultural stock, same line. This is again the language of invasion.
They can be part of the same cultural stock, but Putin still respects the fact that they are a sovereign nation, and if they can be a friendly sovereign nation, that is what Putin has been saying. If you are a friendly sovereign
Become
nation,
a Russian puppet, right? In one sentence, become a Russian puppet.
The other alternative is a US puppet. Which
So
one
anyway,
would you prefer for?
Puppets. So it is a binary between being a US puppet or a
If they
Russian
can-
puppet, and you want a Russian puppet. See,
If they
ordinary
can
human
find a
beings,
neutral-
human beings like us want democratic process and an impartial and objective people's government there. But you want a Russian puppet. So you concede
then let
that you want a Russian puppet.
Let the Ukrainians decide. Let the Ukrainians give a vote, and let them decide. Who are we?
They have voted, isn't it? They have voted, and the person got 70% of votes, isn't it?
Correct.
In the last general election, he got 71% of votes, isn't it?
But the previously elected president was ousted by an undemocratic process, and it was after that this president was reinstated, and that too by flushing millions and millions of dollars by US. We saw how the elections can get rigged. We saw that happening in the US elections as well, and that at that time,
Then I mean, we didn't see. When did you see US elections being
the whole Cambridge Analytica.
Just let me intervene. Just let me intervene. That you were making an allegation that the US election was rigged. That means Trump was winning, isn't it? That election you are referring to, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Who rigged it?
Don't tell me
Popular opinion.
No. Just who rigged it? It was the Russians, isn't it? The allegation was it is Russians. Am I right?
Allegation, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You are making a statement, believing so that election was rigged. That election was rigged. That election was rigged by whom? It was Vladimir Putin.
Exactly. My point is
so
that
who is doing more wrong here? You yourself have made a reference saying that election was rigged. Definitely, if I concede to that point, who has rigged that election? The contention across the world is that it has been rigged by the Russian president.
The contention, yes, but was it proved? It was not. It is not
you
established.
made a statement, isn't it? You made a statement.
I made a statement that the election was rigged, but I do not have any conclusive proof as to who rigged it. It is only that. But if we look around us also, we are being continuously fed.
No. We don't exactly know who has rigged it. If I take that point, you definitely don't know who has rigged it in United States. That
yes.
What do we say? That leeway you should be giving it to Ukraine as well, isn't it? Why on earth that you are making allegation that in Ukraine that United States have intervened?
Because the international intelligence agencies have said that there has been a flow of money from US to Ukraine during the 2014.
Which international intelligence agency? As far as we know, there is no international intelligence agency. There are intelligence agencies for various nations. There is no international intelligence agency. Can you give me the name of that international intelligence agency?
I'm sorry, sir. It is only information that I read.
So you basically read the conspiracy theories in internet with your low bandwidth internet when you have time. So you mug up all these conspiracy theories, present them as valid arguments.
I read it in the Washington Post, which I find as a credible source.
Did Washington Post say that there was international intelligence agencies pumping in money to Ukraine?
Stated that there was an article in Washington Post which stated that US money, millions of money, was pumped into Ukraine to support
We have exceeded. I understood the line of argument. It's good that you have quoted Washington Post, because at least there is a reference. I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory. Washington Post is a respected media organization on the liberal spectrum. Just two questions.
Hence, I believe.
Do you believe? Yeah, it's a very credible organization. We may have difference of point of view, but it's a very respected organization. Just two questions for my clarification. Do you believe Trump's election was stolen?
I believe that people were influenced because in the current time,
Influence is normal. Anybody can influence. No, just for my clarification and just to pinch myself towards reality, do you as a very responsible person believe in the Trump's lie that the election was stolen from Donald Trump? Yes or no? Your position.
Sir,
Are you purposefully diluting your connection when tough questions are asked? No, just kidding.
No, sir. I'm so sorry. I tried to reconnect to another.
Give me a yes or no answer, because Lal Kumar and myself, we sit on opposite sides and fight with each other. But nobody serious in the world will even concede to Trump. Not even Republican Party says. Not even his Vice President Pence agrees. Do you believe in one yes or no question that Trump's election was stolen? That means the Democratic Party.
Not this one. Not this one.
So you are backtracking. You are cleverly backtracking.
Not this one. Not this one. But I believe that there has been unfair play and there has been meddling in the previous election.
Against Trump?
No, in favor of Trump in the previous election, not this one.
That was by Russia. That was by Russia, right?
Allegedly.
Okay. Very well answered. To be honest, very well answered. But just one humble submission: whenever you are for a competition, make sure at least have a backup plan for your internet, because your answers are very good, and the real quality of the answers lie in the silences and nuances between. So we shouldn't be losing it. Excellently answered. Superbly answered.
Thank you, sir.
And for the next person, I think, sir, you start.
Yeah. Next person is E1, I believe.
E1.
Yes. Good evening, sir.
E1.
Yes.
E1, you started with a very nice assertion saying that Ukrainians were brutally raped. Can you give me any source for this information?
In general, any credible sources that statistically are claimed by any outer sources can't statistically be backed up or be claimed, because during internal conflicts.
Good. You are a relative of Mr. Shashi Tharoor, right? No, that's the reason why I'm speaking in such an English language nobody can understand. I was just asking for a source. Just asking for a source, and you are saying close in hilipilification, honorific ability, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Just a simple question. They were brutally raped is an assertion that's a very serious assertion against Russian army. So where is the source?
During times of war and during times of attack, where the sources, it is absolutely impossible to trace down specific sources. However, it is not okay to invalidate situations that could have potentially have taken place.
So you accept you are adding masala to the whole flavor. You are putting a bit of masala.
Absolutely not, because if I would be doing that, I would be invalidating the lives that were played with and the lives that were not considered during times of war, where humanitarian grounds were breached.
I apologize to the audience for using the next line. So you are just telling anyway army is coming, so some rapes may be happening. So let me build a case against Russian army saying that rapes were happened. See, are you not degrading womanhood itself by using them as cards? You are simply throwing a rape card to demonize the Russian army.
Absolutely seen previously, and I think it's visible to the entire world. Previously, during any times of conflict, whether it's eras ago or whether it's now, it's absolutely prevalent that women are the only toy in the situation that are absolutely played with, whether it's the smallest situation that's currently
and even in debates, women are being toys to play around and act as human shields, so that the woman can always be used to demonize the opposition.
Absolutely not. But by saying that, I think it is invalidating exactly feelings of people that could have potentially have taken place. If it's stated by them, I think it's fair for us to believe and come to terms with the fact that this could have potentially have taken place. Credible sources during time.
It was a tough proposition to justify, but you managed. Just one more thing. How irresponsible of you to call Russia, being one of the largest nations in the world, terrorist invade, extremist. Is it right to call Russia a terrorist? Or extremist? See, Russia is a responsible nation in the world with veto powers. So how irresponsible for you to call Russia terrorist or extremist? Is it not irresponsible and excessive choice of language?
as an individual, I think I believe that I can hold a specific opinion on a nation. And in this situation, I believe to draw parallels to the fact that just how extremist organizations invaded a nation when they didn't have any political support at that time, the exact same way Russia invaded Ukraine and took exactly the same kind of advantage of the nation that did not have a political.
So if I'm not mistaken, you are comparing Russia to Taliban.
I have not stated any names. I will not state any further names. I will just state a broad term as extremists. I mean, it's up to understanding as to who exactly would like to label it as.
Because even the US and the Western powers don't use such a terminology, which can vitiate the situation. Even the US never uses the terminology, so I was surprised by your use of terminology. And one more thing, which the I1 also skipped. Do you believe in the denazification theory of Putin? Because Putin's main contention is the far right, the Nazis, as they call it, are going in Ukraine, and we want denazification. So, what is your position on the denazification theory by Putin?
I think it's far understood the fact that the way it's believed that Putin rules over its own nation seems to draw parallels to a few figureheads we can maybe draw parallels to when we say the word Nazification or Nazis. However, I would also like to state the fact that if Putin seems to want to take over Ukraine and want to safeguard it, I think the way that it's been happening is it's actually a sham. It is under the name of having to do this that I think Putin is taking over and just absolutely breaching any international integrity that Russia held during any absolute terms of.
Good. Alal, please.
E1, isn't it? E1, yes.
Yes.
One simple question. I think during Modi's first regime in India, to protect our sovereignty, we have went on against a strike, that too against Burma and Myanmar is our best ally. We went on with a drone attack, and we were Indian nation state were saying that it was for self-defense, it was needed. Do you believe that such an act was right or wrong? Is it right or wrong according to you?
I believe that any individual nation, when it is in power, should not ideally overtake, and as stated by my respected judge previously, that any nation with extreme power should not be in any position to take over or downplay any nation that does not seem to have that kind of power or position on an international field.
So the response of Indian nation state was not right, isn't it? Can I make a conclusion on that? Is it a fair conclusion?
If the respected judge could concise the as a question, and I could possibly be able to answer it in a much more concise manner.
The thing is, Burma, Myanmar is a very friendly nation to us, obvious.
Yes.
But we have went on with the strike, drone attack. There were certain people being killed, and we were praising that we have done a drone attack against Myanmar. When it comes to Pakistan, leave it. We can consider it as an enemy state. And we, as a democratic nation, the largest democracy in the world, we have breached the sovereignty of other nations to protect our national interest. So according to your definitions, if I follow your definitions on various matters, Modi and his regime, Honorable Prime Minister and his regime was doing wrong. This is what my question is. Yes or no?
I believe it's up to perception. However, in a current situation like this, it's absolutely impossible to take a stand and ground as to which a situation like this, where I ideally wouldn't have to have in-depth knowledge about, so I wouldn't really be able to give you a complete, concise, correct.
Then let me give you a different example.
Just one thing.
Yes.
I believe her answer was really good. I will re-articulate it. In these days of degenerating decency, when there is a lot of confusion and there is going from here and there, when there can be a multiple occasion, there can be a difference of perception. This basically means you are using English in such a way as to convey nothing. Lal asked a beautiful, brilliant, correctly analogous, similar question. Is Indian action on Burma right or wrong, according to your own standard? Whether you can tell yes or no, have the courage. Why are you beating around the bush? Even George Bush doesn't beat around the bush so much as much as you. Please answer the question directly. Is Indian action on Burma right or wrong?
If you are so inconvenient to answer such a question, I'll put a different example. I'll give a different example. You take the case of 1971 war against Pakistan. We liberated Bangladesh. What is our headache to do so? What was our interest? It is our national interest.
I believe that a country, if on the
what has Pakistan done to us in 1971? We created a kind of Mukti Bahini and attacked Bangladesh. Bangladesh means Eastern Pakistan, liberated them, and we are very proud of it.
With the same excuse that the Pakistani army was raping Bangladeshi women, with the same pretext that extremism is going, with the same so-called assertions. So
I have no problems. I have no problems if you say a point that was wrong. I'll stop questioning you further. If you say that is wrong, I'll stop it.
To answer your question, I believe that a nation, to protect its own interests and its own agenda, should not be inflicting any other nation, especially a nation that isn't idly with a lot of enough support to attack them in any sort of way. That's how I would like to answer your question.
I mean, that was a beautiful articulation in Greek. I didn't
One more
understand
point.
yet. Yeah.
One more point.
So you're speaking in Greek. At least the next question, please answer in English. Yeah.
maybe the last question from my side. What is the purpose of NATO? Because Ukraine is keen in joining the NATO, isn't it? What is the purpose of NATO? Is it protecting the national interest of a nation?
To understand NATO in general, it will provide an attack on one individual part of the NATO treaty would be an attack on all individuals.
My question is simple. Is it a peace organization or not? You are going.
Absolutely is, in terms of the fact that Russia currently has absolutely no current formation, no current base, considering the fact that
do you know during the time of George Bush I Senior, they had a formal, it is not formal, in fact, they had an informal agreement that the United States will not expand to the Eastern Europe. Do you know that?
Yes, I believe.
What they are doing now, what the United States is doing now, is the breach of an informal agreement. Is it right or not?
The same way.
I think you are the person who is saying about the nuclear bomb arsenal and all, isn't it?
The same.
Who has attacked Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Is Russia done so?
Russia, we cannot compare the previous world wars to the current world war that Russia is seeming to wage.
Who is saying it? Who is saying it? Who is speaking against Russia? The same United States. Who are the people who bombarded Hiroshima and Nagasaki, isn't it?
And after intervening and making a mess of 62 nations in the past 50 years, US is taking a high moral ground to preach Russia. What about Iraq? What about many other nations? What about Syrian refugee crisis? You are absolutely blind. Why are you a Western apologist?
I believe the fact that if US seems to take a stand for a nation that requires stand currently, when the same previous USSR was part of Russia, if Russia can't seem to look out for its own pre-Soviet nation, I think it's perfectly fine enough for a country like United States to take over and seem fit if it happens to buy into with their country policies and their national policies. If they happen to comply towards what's happening in Ukraine, I think it's fair enough for us to believe that what they're doing is perfectly correct, not considering the previous facts that whatever happened in the past is meant to be put behind. We cannot compare the two situations, just like how we can't compare any other war previously.
You cannot compare it, but we can, it seems. You may not be able to compare it, but I think we can compare it.
And since we are running short of time, one last simple question.
You should proceed.
I'm repeating last question. Is India's intervention in Myanmar, Burma right or wrong? See, you are the kind of person when asked with a yes or no question, you will answer or. If somebody is asking yes or no, you will say, it is or in between. This is very unfortunate. No, just kidding. Well answered. There are many nuanced positions. So, in the conclusion part, we will say how to answer difficult questions in a nutshell. There are many tough questions where you cannot take a position. So, how to answer those questions is a skill in itself. We will come to it. We don't want to give it right now because the other students may be listening. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for asking such questions. I greatly appreciate this.
Next person, please. Next person.
E1 or I2? Sorry, E2 or I2? I2 it should be, isn't it?
Sir, I2.
Yeah.
Is it
So you start,
I2?
sir.
Yeah, I think it is I2, right?
I2 or
I2 or E1?
yeah, I am.
Is it I2 or E1? Anyone? This was E1. So E2 or I2? Anybody? We are okay with it. Yeah.
Sir, I'm ready.
I think we'll go with I2. I2, just one personal question. Were you speaking from heart or were you reading by heart those things you have studied? You are just mugging up something. You are keeping a paper in between and just reading reading out as if we are doing some presentation in the academy. You were just reading by heart. There were no passion. There was no conviction in whatever you said.
I'm sorry if it felt so. I had actually studied my speech yesterday and I had spoken it from my heart. I included my own points in order to put forth my arguments.
Yeah, nothing. Just wanted to catch you off. That's the reason.
Sorry, sir. I'm using my phone, so it is hard to keep contacts with the camera lens. That is why that
no issues. Yeah. Now the serious question. Even Ivan, who is a blind Russian apologist, who is blindly going behind Putin, agrees that it is an invasion. But you had the audacity to call I2, right? Yeah, you had the audacity to call it is a war between Ukraine and Russia. See, war is between at least equals. Russia is invading, looting, destroying Ukraine, and you call it a war?
Sir, I seek apology for doing so. It is definitely an invasion, sir. And while invading the same as my judge has rightly stated, the Russia has stated that it is doing this invasion to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. Sir, who is Russia to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine? Russia does not have to act as a godfather of every other country, especially a pre-Soviet country that is facing much danger, that is facing a lot of dangerous situations just because of Russia's acts, sir.
Just last two more questions because we are running short of time. Yeah, what a great statement. Russia doesn't want to be the godfather of any other nation. What about America? They can intervene anywhere. They can create a mess. They can kill millions of people. Nobody is asking. But Russia, when for its own security, is proposing something. And let me read out to you what you said. With great pain in your tone, the largest refugee crisis, the largest attack on Europe since World War II. My dear friends, Asia, Middle East has been facing this for the past many decades. More than Ukrainians, the Middle Eastern brothers and sisters have suffered. Where was your pain then? So you are only concerned about white, blonde Europeans, but not about Middle Eastern Arabs.
So even as the UN Refugee Center says, the world is concerned about every other refugee that exists in this world, sir. Every other refugee in this world is precious and their voice has to be taken into account. Now, Russia's action on Ukraine or invasion on Ukraine cannot be justified by saying that America or the United States of America had done violent acts in the past, sir. This particular invasion is on Ukraine, sir. Ukraine hasn't done any invasion in their own past, and hence such an invasion on Ukraine cannot be normalized by telling that United States of America, who in this particular invasion is working towards the safeguard of Ukraine, has done such alleged actions in the past, sir.
My last question. See, you might have read about the breakaway Ukrainian republics or the breakaway Ukraine regions which Russia conceded. In the past many years, thousands of people of those republics or those regions were killed by Ukrainian forces. Are they not humans enough? Just because they are pro-Russia, they can be killed? What about the plight of those people when Ukraine was doing injustice to their own people, especially Russian-leading and Russian-speaking minority? Why can't Russia intervene?
Sir, even pro-Russian separatists like Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic has been facing a lot of issues because of the Russia's invasion on the Ukraine, sir. Right now, at this point, during this invasion, all of the pro-Russian separatists are facing issues with regards to the war or with regards to the aggressive rebellion that Russia has proclaimed towards them, sir. And I think Ukraine's act in the past few years is not. Is that enough?
Got it. Got the line of here. Lal, please.
You were saying that the war against Ukraine is an aggression from Russian side, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
My question is, it's quite an academic in nature. Question is academic in nature. Do you believe in liberalism or realism?
Sir, I believe in both. I believe in both liberalism and realism. Liberalism is indeed
Then my question is, what realism is?
What? Sir,
realism
sorry?
is. What realism is?
Sir,
you believe in both. What realism is then?
Sir, I didn't say that I believe in both equally. I believe in liberalism more, but I will explain what realism is in nature, sir. I will just explain. Sir, can I state about Platonic realism?
You speak. We'll see.
Yeah. So realism is actually a philosophy, the viewpoint which accords to things which are known or perceived and existence of nature, sir. Sir, realistic view of approach. For example, Sir Augustus. Sir Augustus is the Sir Augustus and Plato are the major philosophers of realism. So the history of Western philosophy is checkered with dispute
How
between
it is related to war? How it is related to international affairs? I'm asking about the realism of international affairs. The realism of the Hobbesian Leviathan.
Lal, why don't you understand? That is not easily openable in the Google in front of her. Whenever you are asking realism, she is taking that realism and reading in the classic definition. No. See, these are just to catch you off guard. No worries. Everybody refers, but please answer. These are just to put
realism of international affairs. The classical realism of international affairs.
Sir, I'm not much aware of this particular philosophy. I'm aware of the philosophy of Plato with regards to realism, but I don't know how.
Realism means it is a kind of zero-sum game. You are. It is easy. It is okay to go again. You go for a war against another nation states because the might will win. That is realism.
Sir,
just for the team I2 once again, when you search realism in philosophy, realism is a totally different word. See, I know what Lal is asking. Please understand the context of it. Realism as a philosophy, especially in the Platonic language, is a different one altogether.
Yes.
So just get the thrust of the question and answer to the
point. Because we are talking about a subject which is related to international affairs.
Yeah, sure, sir. Sure, sir. I thought you asked about the general concept of realism.
But the problem is when you why I raise such a fundamental point. Because when you come for a debate, you should understand the theories behind it, isn't it? You every day you say when you see the newspaper, or even you were saying that you have to diplomatically solve the issue. Well, how to diplomatically solve the issue? It is the liberal perspective. It is the liberal perspective.
Yes, sure, sir. Sir, if realism is of the view that only the mighty can win the war and the war should be proclaimed.
That is an explanation that you are giving after listening to my explanation, isn't it?
Yes, I am going to, yeah, sir, I'm going to tell, sir, there is some kind of disturbance in the, sorted. Sir, so if the realism is of that nature, then I don't think we have to support realism altogether. Yes, in certain nations, for example, in India and Burma, or I'm telling in India and Burma situation, when the national security is at stake, definitely the war has to be spoken out. But when the national security is of no threat,
don't you think that the expansionist tendency of the United States and the NATO in the Eastern Europe is not aggressive in nature?
Sure, it is not definitely aggressive in nature, sir.
Why?
What Russia is claiming is that the Ukraine shouldn't enter into the NATO agreement, but NATO is actually a collective defense, and it actually only creates a spirit of solidarity and cohesion among its members. It is not entering into NATO. Ukraine entering into NATO is definitely not a threat to Russia's internal security.
Why is it that so?
Facing any kind of armed rebellion or any kind of invasion by the Ukraine in this particular war. In this particular war itself, we have seen that Russia is the one who has.
Look, when it comes to Cuban Missile Crisis, Nikita Khrushchev and team went on in arming Cuba, isn't it? Why?
Yes.
Why Kennedy and the group went against United States? That was the deterrent effect. Deterrent effect.
Yes.
No attack was happened. What attack has happened? Tell me.
Sure, sir. Comparing with that case, there can be deterrent effect, but right now the United States of America is not pushing any deterrent effects on these particular wars, sir. all of the United States of America is only trying to securize the lives of millions of people that exist in Ukraine. And there is no.
We are running short of time. Just one thing, just like Lal asked earlier. So you are against Indian action on Burma, right?
Sir, I'm not completely against Indian action on Burma. That particular case, India had to safeguard its own national
with the army going to the other side, but they should shake hands, give laddus and come back.
We can.
No, sir.
No, her perception, sir. Her perception is simple. Her perception is simple. I'll tell you. She is ready if India attacks someone. But if I am attacking someone, it's okay. But I should not be attacked. That's it.
I respectfully want to correct that statement. If India attacks any other nation without any particular reason or without any internal aggression or without any threat to national security of India, I will definitely be the first person to come against India.
So that means you are against 1971 war because we had no reason. Our problem was the refugee crisis, in fact.
Sir, the refugee crisis was in fact affecting, creating a lot of internal conflicts in India at that time, sir. So moving back to 1971, the refugee crisis did disturb the equilibrium of the structure of the state back in those times.
Your point is, if India has a valid reason, it can attack other nations. But right now, Russia has attacked without a valid reason. Is that your point?
So that is not my point. If anyone has a valid reason to invade, if they are a member of United Nations, they should first go to the United Nations and give base for the settlement. And if that settlement is not happening,
United Nations
they have
America ki chamcha hai. United Nations blindly follows what America says. They fund. What is NATO? It is nothing but American hegemony and slavery. What is NATO? It is America, nothing else.
Sir, I would like to say the United Nations is a very neutral organ that wants world peace in general, and that is why in this particular war, United Nations has been acting to protect the citizens of Ukraine, especially the refugees, even the Indian refugees.
Lectures on world peace happens in UN. Yeah, that's very true. Most lectures, most seminars, more books on world peace. No, just kidding. I respect UN. Even we had a program with UN person yesterday. That's okay. Thank you. We are running short of time.
Thank you, sir. I'm so thankful for the very respectful questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes. Lal, please, next person, please.
Good evening, sir.
You are E2. You're okay with attacking, isn't it?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Attacking?
Bombarding the important...
special military operation, as Putin put it.
It's total war. You give different words.
Poison sugar-coated with coffee is okay for you.
No,
it is total war.
Rape, torture, but call it special military operation.
It is war, but I feel like it is justified because you cannot let countries that are basically in your backyard become parts of a
backyard means
basically sharing borders with you. So
if you take the case of Nepal, they are in our backyard, isn't it?
Yes.
Can we say? Okay.
Yeah. You are
so
they are living agent. You are speaking the language of a KGB agent.
I mean that countries that share borders with your country, if they are willing to sign a military organization treaty, which has basically been formed to oppose your very existence since the Soviet era, then I think it is very much justified to take action.
Do you support the Israeli aggression against Iran?
Israeli aggression against Iran?
Iran. In general, there is an aggression against Iran. Although they haven't physically attacked, but the international atmosphere is always against Iran. Do you support it or not? By the Israeli side?
I am not very aware, honestly, of why Israel or Iranian crisis. So I wouldn't be able to take a very strong stand, but I can say that if Iran was threatening sovereignty or even you can say security of a particular nation, then taking aggressive stands against them is the only realistic approach available to a country.
Iran was actually looking for a nuclear deterrence. They were proliferating nuclear arms. They were claiming that it is arms, but they were saying that it's for non-war purpose. Right. But the United States and its allies, especially Israel, went on sanctioning against Iran.
Right.
Is it right or not?
It's incorrect, sir. Because I feel, as far as I have read, I do remember that even after the Iranian war, they had failed to find nuclear weapons or any even anything relating even close to nuclear weapons in Iran. So I feel like United States is very popularly taking all matters in their hands. It doesn't matter what a country wants to stand on a political stage, as long as it's even a 1% deterrent to what United States want. They will very aggressively, with the help of all its allies, take the action that they want to, and they will never claim that it's war or it's military organization, but they will always claim that they are supporting
the
democracy.
Russians are also following, isn't it?
No, sir. The thing
have you heard about the Hungarian uprising?
Hungarian uprising. Yeah, when they wanted a democratic country, they wanted a democratic country.
Nikita Khrushchev or Brezhnev sent a troop.
Yeah.
Was it democratic from the Russian part?
This was during the United.
My question is, the Russians have a tendency always to claim that the Eastern Territory is their part.
Okay.
Who are they to say so?
So when their sovereignty or when their security is threatened, because when the countries in the eastern part start leaning towards the west, okay, and when west is propaganda like very clearly not afraid of making any moves or any military action, when United States of America is never afraid of taking military action or in fact selling arms to like whichever country possible without thinking of its repercussions, then why shouldn't Russia take certain steps that will deter the same from happening near in the countries that are bordering their sovereignty.
I know. I was just informed we are running short of time. Just one question.
You finished up.
So you are okay with Pakistan in support of China coming inside, liberating Kashmir, saying that it is some kind of a threat to them, right? That's what you're saying.
No.
Why not? That's the same thing that Russia did. Russia said pro-Russian, their minority region, they are supporting us. So China, which is a big brother, more military powerful than us Indians, China plus Pakistan, the all-weather friend, China and Pakistan coming together, liberating Kashmir, just like this Luhansk towns. So you are okay with it?
No, I mean Kashmir as a territory is a political issue that has still not been solved. Ukraine.
What is Luhansk a spiritual issue?
Sorry?
So what are the breakaway regions of Ukraine? Are they a spiritual issue? They are also a political issue.
No. I mean that Indian occupied Kashmir and Pakistan, Indian administered Kashmir and Pakistani occupied Kashmir are two different
you are conceding it is Indian occupied, not Indian Kashmir.
No. It was
you
a slip of tongue.
It
was a slip of tongue. I immediately corrected myself.
It's a Freudian slip. The truth came out. The truth came out instead of all the jingoistic
I immediately corrected myself. I wanted to say Pakistani occupied Kashmir.
The truth came out that it is Indian occupied Kashmir.
No, sir. I wanted to say Pakistani occupied Kashmir. It was a slip of tongue. Apologies on my behalf. What I'm trying to say is that when it comes to Kashmir, see, the military action that is taken by Pakistan, it is never under the banner of their own country. It's always with the help of terrorist organizations. And that's where the problem comes from. When you start putting terrorists in our country...
To be honest, good answer. We are telling it is running short of time. Lal, maybe we both can give some kind of feedback in 1 minute, and then it is time for them to conclude.
Yeah. I think for me, I was quite happy with the way you conducted yourself. Definitely good breed of language. You people in general, I'm saying in general, not to you alone. You spoke well. One person was actually experiencing a hell lot of problem with the internet. That is to be fixed before going for the next debate, or else people will throw you out. And second impression which I had was one person, as Rahul Ishwar has rightly referred, was I had a feeling that she was reading it. I had such an impression. Maybe because of the camera placement, I don't know. But such a feeling was there. So that should be avoided. You should take care of the fact that people are seeing you, isn't it? So
Sure,
apart
sir,
from
sure.
apart from that,
I'm sorry, sir. It's because of my front camera's position, and I didn't have a lap at that time.
that's okay. It's
Laptop
okay.
at that time.
I'm saying we had such an impression. I was having such an impression that you are reading it out. Apart from that, it had gone well. One important point. When you come for a debate, when you stick on to a stand, I may or he may provoke you with many things, but never dilute your stand. Never ever, because you are law students, isn't it? Law students means you go for an argument before the court. If you are going with the other side, that means you are losing the case. So I may say something, the judge may say something, the other person may invite you to change your opinion, but sticking on to your opinion is your victory. You may lose the case, that's different, but your justice is you stick on to the point. That's it, sir.
Just a quick feedback, Lal. They were telling, if we can send to the organizer the mark sheet, it would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. One quick feedback from me. Let me be very honest. This is one of the best debates I've attended. I congratulate Law Academy Law College. Absolutely fabulous, and all the both the teams, they were absolutely good. You are of national level, of course. You need a bit more polishing, bit more positioning your argument in a better way. Lal said something very important. See, we are going to push back. We are going to be devil's advocate. Whatever you say, we are going to push back. If you are saying Gandhiji is good, we will say Gandhiji is bad. If you are saying Godse is bad, we will say Godse is good. See, we will push back whatever you say, because that's the strength of your position. 2 or 3 quick words. One, the most important aspect is choice of words. So choice of words will give away. If I'm a Russian supporter, it is better to call it Ukraine-Russian war. But here what we saw was the Russian person was calling it invasion and the Ukraine supporter was calling it Ukraine-Russia war. So, at least to give, whatever it is, you can take any position. So choice of words is extremely important. The structure of arguments, as Lal said, you should be passionate about the position. More often than not, these kind of debates are not for academic vagaries. Normal judges, audience would like you to take a committed position and argue passionately about it. That's one thing you should keep in mind. And one very important question, there will be very tough questions to you. There are many things we cannot take a direct position. For example, asking about India in Burma, asking about if Pakistan and Russia invades. How can you answer? You should be knowing that there is a slippery space where we cannot commit to a position. So the ideal answers there are, sir, you cannot, or ma'am, you cannot compare apples and oranges. Or if you want to add flavor, you can say you cannot compare apples and pineapples. This is what I always say to Arnab Goswami and Barkadat. When they are asking a tough question to me, I will say you cannot compare apples and pineapples. Even though they sound alike, they don't taste alike.
One point, adding to that, human mind has got a tendency to either stick on to white or black, but there is an area called gray, which is very important. Gray is there. It's having a huge share of, what do you say, portion, isn't it? That's a big share. So that we should appreciate. I'm
gray reality, and as he said, you can use that word. Sir, it's a nuanced position. You can use the word nuance. It's a gray area. Or you can say you cannot compare apples and bananas. Or if they persist, you can also say, sir, divine or devil lie in the details. So you have to see case by case. See, this is also a good argument and a way of escaping the other arguments. Because, you cannot maybe on a public platform take a position contrary to national interest. I was asking one person, so do you agree with Pakistan invading Kashmir with the help of China? Nobody can say yes. So you can say the question is different. You almost answered really well. Your answers were really good. And whichever position you take, have that, don't be a fence sitter in debates. Of course, there are some positions you have to be very neutral, kind of balancing, which I'm very good at. But having said that, sometimes you have to take a strong position and argue for the normal people to listen to. And especially all the net debates have a very good screen, have a very good background. These things add to the overall value. And please remember, your body language is nearly 55% of the impact. 38% of the impact is tones, and 7% is words and ideas. So unconsciously, even when we give marks at the end of the session, we may not remember all the arguments you said, but we will remember the way you made us feel while you are presenting the arguments. So your choice of dress, your background, everything will add to the whole value. And the tone was really good. You are absolutely wonderful. You are really the pundits of the international relations. Very, very good. So it was exceptionally good. I think it was one of the best debates that we could attend. Absolutely sure. If you are going this way, you will replace people like Lala and me on media in very short a time. So great. Have a great future. Go ahead. Congrats.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the feedback, sir.
For your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, judges. With this, we have come to the end of the session. The results will be announced in the valedictory session. With the judges' kind permission, shall we end the session? Thank you, judges. Thank you, participants. You may leave the meeting now.